Good. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, Meredith, thanks for being on. Excited to have this conversation. So you've done a whole lot of amazing things in your young life already, so I'm excited to kind of dig into them. But let's go back to the start. You know, you were the third of four kids. You grew up at the ball fields and eventually you became an All-American softball player at Stetson. Before we get into all that and being a mother and CrossFit and all that type of stuff, take me back to that girl that grew up. What was she like?
Yeah, she was a tomboy, just enjoying life at the creek down the street, catching tadpoles and minnows in her brother's hand-me-down Umbro shorts.
Yeah.
I can remember, dragging my sister out to play kickball just so I could beat her. And, I just loved being outdoors. I mean, most of my childhood, I just remember playing in the neighborhood, and we had a creek that ran through the back. We spent a lot of days out there, and it was like as soon as I got home from school, we were hitting out in the neighborhood streets, on my bike or whatever we could find to do outside.
Mm-hmm. So you're the third of four kids. What did that do to your competitive wiring?
I felt like I was firstborn because there's a gap between me and my second brother, about 4 years, Ty, and I have 4 years in between us, and then obviously there's 6 years between you and I. And I was the first girl, so I always felt like, it was kind of like a restart when I came through. And you guys were so much older than me, I spent a good amount of time playing with Ty, but by the time, I was old enough to really be aware, you were kind of busy with your baseball and your soccer, and I was just kind of following along to your sporting events. But yeah, I mean, I would say for me in that birth order, it just kind of felt like starting fresh.
And you acted like it, huh?
Hey, firstborn daughters, it's just our plight in
life. Yeah. So you picked up softball at a really early age. You also picked up some other sports, but at what point did you feel like softball is kind of my thing? You realized you were good at it, and how did that feel once you kind of started focusing on that?
Yeah, so I remember playing tennis first, and Dad built me a wall to practice hitting the balls up against the wall. And so I kind of started learning like a little bit that when you practice, you get a little bit better. But then I got good enough to play tournaments, and my mom was like, we don't want to do that. And that's when she kind of transitioned me into softball. I was too young to really know the difference. And they had me try out for this travel team. At the time, I grew up in Northeast Jackson. We were playing Northeast Jackson softball. I didn't know. My parents didn't know, but it was really behind. So I tried out for a travel team, which they didn't have that in Jackson, so I had to go somewhere else to try out in Madison. And they were like, yeah, we want to take her, but she's really behind. So she's got to do 10,000 throws and catches by the time we start season in the spring. So I tried out in the fall. We broke it down to like 100 a night through the winter. And then by the time we started in the spring, I would be ready to play. And so Mom and I, in our fur coats, under the street lights out in our neighborhood streets, would do 100 throws and catches every night. And let me tell you, at the beginning, it was so bad. We kept having to get our neighbor's dad to like get in the gutter to get it ball out because we could not.
Was that because you couldn't or because Mom couldn't throw or both?
I'm not going to. It was a little bit of both.
Y'all were both learning, huh?
Yeah. But by the end of it, I got so much better that they had me play catcher. I was our starting catcher because I was the only one with a strong enough arm to make it to second base. And it was because of all those throws and catches. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got the taste of like, hey, this is really fun. Like all of a sudden I'm really good at this. And so I never had that moment of like, this is my sport. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really good. I really want to keep doing this. And it was just simply because somebody told me, hey, you need to do some throws and catches.
So the coach told you to do 10,000 throws?
Yes.
Do you think he ever told anybody else that actually did that many or kept track of it?
I highly doubt it. It was a lot, because what you don't think about in the winter, like the sun goes down pretty much by the time you're getting home from school, and it's cold. So, I like my memory I feel like he paid me maybe like $1 for every 10 or something like that. So, because I remember getting some money, and that like super motivated me. I loved having money. But I'm sure, like, looking back, it was probably like $100.
So how old were you when you were doing this?
I think I was 9.
Wow.
I was 9 to 10 in that range. Because I was like late. Everybody else had already been playing before me, and I was like coming onto the scene behind them.
Mm-hmm. So I was talking about this with my wife, and then also Ty. Softball and baseball are very similar in that they're very high skill sports that if you put in a lot of work, you will get good at it. And so you can just really practice and do a lot of the drills and whatever to get really good at that sport. But then if you couple that with competitive ability, natural athleticism, and your ability to work on yourself as an athlete, then you can get really, really good at softball. So that's one of those sports that you can really benefit from putting all that work in. So you did it all through the winter, and then you show back up in the spring, and you made the travel team. And tell me how that went.
Yeah, we were really bad. I was kind of starting to dabble in pitching, but like all I can remember is we were happy when we made it to Sunday. So back then the formats were 2-day tournaments, double elimination. If you lose your first game on Saturday, you play again, and if you win, then you get to Sunday. But we were losing out all the time. And so, I didn't know the difference. I was just happy to be out there. I was really enjoying it. And my dad was busy with my brothers, you and Ty. So what I really remember about that time, not was like how good or bad we were, but just how much fun I was having with the girls on the team and my mom and I. Like, it was a lot of really great quality time with my mom because she was taking me to these tournaments, and she always did a really good job of making it fun. I feel like every tournament we'd stop by for a new color of fingernail polish, and I'd paint my nails or my toes on the way home from the tournament, and I just loved that one-on-one time with her.
Yeah. So you were playing your own tournaments, and then you were also going and watching myself and Ty's games. So you're at the ball fields all the time, every weekend, and it was just a lot of chaos and late dinners and everything. Is that something that you really enjoyed, or did you look forward to having some downtime?
No, I was so bored when we finally stopped. Like what I remember about winter when we were growing up was just being bored, because I was so used to like being on the go and doing. And like, winter was when pretty much all of our sports stopped. And I hated that time of the year. I still hate winter, but that particularly is like a memory that sticks out in my mind, is like I loved being on the go. And my core memories are being at the ball field when you and Ty were playing, watching you play at Millsaps. Like, y'all would play 10-hour days. Y'all would have these huge, long Saturday games, and I look forward to it all week because it was so much fun to get to watch you play, and it didn't hurt that y'all were good, that you were good. You know, I'd be counting down the batters till you were up again.
Really?
Yeah, because it was so fun to watch you hit. But same thing, like I remember my brother Ty, they made it to the Dizzy Dean World Series in Hasburg, and they lost like their first game. So they thought they were going to be done. So my mom canceled our hotel room. And so we were driving back and forth from Hattiesburg every day for a week. And it was like the best thing ever.
So that was, I remember that too. That was a lot of fun. So you moved on and progressed into high school, and you were doing a couple different travel teams, and then also really started focusing on pitching. So kind of tell me that progression of going from starting in travel ball to this big time high school player who ended up, going on to college and playing.
Yeah. So it started with that foundation of the 10,000 throws and catches. I ended up leaving that travel team after a couple of years and trying out for a new one where the coach's daughter was their main pitcher. And that was when I was kind of transitioning to really like pitching. And she and I were probably about the same, but she got way more time than me. And so my parents were basically like, hey, look, if you want to pitch more, you're just going to have to make it so obvious that you're better than her. And so that really motivated me. And all winter long, I really worked hard on getting faster and throwing it harder, hitting my spots better. And by the time I came back in the spring, I was a lot better than her. And so, of course, like once you start that snowball of, hey, if I put in some time and work, all of a sudden I can be really good, and it's fun to be really good. So I just kind of lived on that snowball and was always looking for the next thing that was going to make me better and better. And I stayed on that travel team for 4 years. We were awesome. We were really, really good. We kicked everybody's butt in the state of Mississippi, but then we'd go play tournaments outside of Mississippi and we'd lose. And so my parents recognized that if I was going to play at the collegiate level, and my dream was to play Division I, that I was going to have to play the best competition, and that team just wasn't doing it. So I ended up leaving and traveling to Memphis, trying out for a team up there. And same thing, the coach was like, hey, I see your potential. You're behind all these girls that have been playing this big competition. I think you need to get stronger. And I am so thankful that she said that, because I feel like to this day that was my best kept secret. When she said that, I started working out with our he was just like a physical therapist assistant at Jackson Prep at the time. His name's Rusty Burke, and he would have me do CrossFit workout once a week and then powerlifting the other day. So I was literally working out twice a week, and I went from 3 home runs to 25 in one season.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't know how many miles an hour on my fastball, but I know that I went from getting run ruled in the fall 15-0 by Team Florida to competing in the spring, and it was literally, it just took twice a week for my body to just kind of absorb that. And I was 15, so it was probably at the right time too. But at that time I was like, whoa, if I work out and I work hard, the sky's the limit on this thing.
Yeah, I feel like so many people don't realize how beneficial training can be for their athletic career until they're done playing sports and they move on to college and get into working out, or even afterwards. They're like, man, I wish I would have been doing that in high school. And the kids that actually do it in high school, when their bodies are growing naturally, they can just
they're ahead.
Oh, they move so far ahead so quickly.
Exactly.
So you were working out before school, right?
Yeah, I go at 6 a.m. because we had to be out of the weight room by the time the boys got in at 7, which was, the weight room was plenty big, but it's one of those things, they don't want the boys and the girls mixing. So I'd get up, 5:30, go work out at 6, come home, shower and eat, and make my way back to school.
So you would drive to the gym, which was 15, 20 minutes away, and then drive home and change, and then drive back to go to school, and then go to school all day, and then go to practice after school, and then fit in your homework. How did you get all that stuff in?
Well, I will say I probably slept through a couple of periods here and there.
Didn't maybe do all the homework you were supposed to do?
Yeah. I remember specifically doing homework in that 5-minute period before my next class.
Yeah.
It was... But what that taught me was time management. I use that skill to this day, literally taking every second of every day, taking advantage of it, because so much of high school is just like busy work. And if you can get that busy work done, then you'll make good grades. So especially at a school like Prep, they pack it on you. So I was just finding every second of every day that I could,
So you go on and have a great high school career. And were you Mississippi Player of the Year in softball your senior year?
Yeah, so my senior year, I was Miss Softball for the Clarion Ledger, and I was the state softball player of the year in the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you were looking to go to college. Tell me about the recruiting process and how you ultimately decided to go to Stetson. Yeah,
that time period was tough. I specifically remember I was getting migraines because I was so stressed. I mean, gosh, I was 15, 16, and I was stressing out about my future. It was never outside forces. It was always intrinsically, I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself because I just wanted to go Division I so bad, and I wanted a full ride so bad. So those were like the 2 expectations I put on myself. And I was playing on that travel ball team in Memphis, and that coach had a connection with a coach down in Florida at Stetson University. His name was Frank Griffin. And we went to a tournament down there the fall of my junior year. So I was, 16? And I remember seeing him in the stands because, those coaches, they've got all their gear on. And she kept these type of tournaments, like you can sub people in and out. She would like every fifth batter, she'd sub me in for a new at bat. So I was like, okay, obviously
somebody's here watching me. Yeah.
Yeah. And no joke, I went 0 for 5.
Oh.
And I can't tell you a time that I had hit that poorly in a game. But for some reason, the Stetson coach saw something in me that day and told her that he'd offer me a full ride on the spot. And I wasn't, I'd never heard of Stetson. My dream was to go to Alabama or LSU. LSU was my main goal. And so when that happened, I was hesitant to choose Stetson because I wanted to explore my other options. And LSU at the time was looking at me, but they were looking at me for simply a hitter. They weren't looking at me for pitching and hitting. And what I had found out in that whole process was, I was taught an incorrect way to pitch, so I was really behind. And when I switched to that Memphis team, she changed my style, but it didn't undo the 5 years of being behind that I had learned. So what ended up happening was I went and visited Stetson, and I walked onto the field, and when I stood on the pitching rubber, I was like, okay, I just got a gut feeling, it felt like home. And I walked into the field house, and they had the championship ring sitting on the wall. And I was like, this place checks my boxes. It's in Florida. I'm 30 minutes from the beach. I'm getting a full ride, and they win. And also this coach is telling me if I walk in the door tomorrow, I'm going to start.
Wow. So
that was a lot different than what LSU probably would have been able to offer me. And so I decided, I'm all in on Stetson for those reasons.
So did you have a conversation with mom and dad, with your parents about that at all, or you just kind of tell them I'm going to Stetson?
Yeah, I think they kind of let me lead the way. Because I remember specifically there was like a miscommunication on how much money they could offer. Because Stetson's a private school, it was like $45,000 a year, and he offered me a full ride, and then when we were there, he was like 80%, and then he came back and was like, "No, I do have a full ride." I think he just hadn't looked at his books yet. And so my dad specifically, I remember he was like, "I mean, you could go walk on at Ole Miss for what it costs for 20% at Stetson."
Yeah.
So he was kind of pushing me to wait. And so we did. I listened to his advice, and that's when the Stetson coach came back with the full ride. And when he said, "Yeah, we'll basically give you a house for 4 years," I wanted to reach out to LSU first to make sure, and after that, we decided, Stetson's the way.
So you took the full ride, and then you decided to move to DeLand, Florida.
Yep.
How many hours away from home was that?
11.
11-hour drive.
By the car, yeah.
So what was that transition like, moving away and moving to Florida for 4 years?
So that Memphis team that I've been playing for, I'd basically been living away from home in the summers anyway. I was driving myself at 15 and a half up to Memphis. I mean, my parents had 4 kids. They couldn't drive me back and forth 6 hours all the time. So I had kind of started that transition out of the nest. But it was sad. I remember many flights, because I'd drive down at the beginning and then fly back and forth throughout the year and then drive home for the summer. Many flights, crying in my pillow on the way there and being so excited to be coming home on my flights back. But it was never this isn't the right thing. I always knew it was the right thing. And it always felt like the right place for me. But it doesn't make it easy. I was still kind of sad because I'm very close with my family. Still am.
Yeah.
So
you get down there, and how did the first couple years go for you?
Gosh, first year was awful. One thing that I didn't realize I had struggled with until I got to Stetson was self-doubt. My travel team that I had been on in Memphis, that coach had told me she and I had struggled back and forth with my swing, which my dad had gone against the grain, gone to see this professional hitting instructor in Colorado, brought that swing back to you and I, and at the time it was like blackballed. It was the wrong way that you hit. But my dad was bought in all into it. You and I were bought in all into it. That was the same year that I went from 3 to 25 home runs. We saw success with it. But that coach had told me, oh, you'll never hit at the collegiate level with that swing. And that nagged me. And I hate that it did. You know, it's one of my regrets now, but I was full of doubt when I walked in those doors my freshman year, and we had a toxic environment. And that's one of those things that can happen in female sports is there's a lot of animosity between each other. Then it's really hard for everybody to compete in a good way. They end up competing against each other instead of together. And that's what happened my freshman year. Like, there were 2 seniors that were competing against me for a position. And so they really, you know, did not support me in a good way and told me things that didn't help me out at all. And so by the end of my freshman year, we didn't even make conference playoffs. We were literally done at the end of regular season, and I was ready to leave. My pitching coach, I had ended up switching to a new pitching coach here in Mississippi. She had a connection in Virginia. She was like, hey, they want you. If you're willing to go, let's go. And back then, they didn't have what's called the transfer portal, you know, and I'd have to sit out a year. And I never felt in my gut or in my heart that that was the right decision. I felt like I was meant to be at Stetson, and I never regretted the decision. It was just my freshman year was so hard. I came in as a freshman pitcher, and there were 2 sophomore pitchers ahead of me. So by the end of my freshman year, both of them had gotten kicked off the team for doing dumb things on the internet. And so it was me. I knew I was going to be the only pitcher, so I was like, okay, I'm going to stick it out another year, and we're going to see how it goes. And at the end of the season, we had a girl hurt her finger. And instead of letting me hit for her, she bunted for 6 at-bats in a row for our last 2 games. And I was so mad. I could not understand why our coach just didn't let me get an opportunity. And, like, looking back at my stats, I was hitting, like, 130, you know? Yeah, I hadn't had a bunch of at-bats, but I'd had plenty of opportunities. And so I met with him at the end of the season, and I just asked him, like, hey, why didn't you give me a chance? And he was like, you've done nothing for me. And that was a dagger to my heart, because I was like, man, you know, he's right. I haven't performed. I haven't executed like I'm capable. And so that stuck with me. And my dad, gosh, I'm so thankful and grateful for him, because he was in it with me. And that summer, he took me out to Denver to see that hitting instructor. We worked out the kinks in my swing that I had developed being alone my freshman year and not really knowing the swing myself. I think up until that point, I just depended on my dad to fix my swing for me. And so we did. We fixed it, and I figured out how to do it myself as a big girl. And I went back my sophomore year and ended up hitting for the Triple Crown. Another pitcher, a freshman pitcher, came in, and our whole preseason, our coach was threatening that she would be our ace. You know, he was always talking about that. And in my mind, I was like, there's no way over my dead body am I going to let that happen. You know, my freshman year, he kicked everybody off, so I had to pitch everything. So I was like, there's no way that you're going to ride me like that my freshman year and then ditch me my sophomore year. So by the end of our sophomore season, I was doing all the pitching. I pitched every game in our conference tournament.
Wow.
And I think we got 3rd. We did great. So it was like an aha moment for me of like, you've got it in you. This is what it takes. You just have to kind of grow up a little bit, be on your own, you know?
Wow. So you learned what you needed to do for yourself to perform at the next level, and then you started having success with it. And so that led to your junior and senior year where you just took it and run with it. What allowed you to be able to pitch every single game on top of being able to hit and all that type of stuff?
Yeah. So after my freshman year, I came home, and my brother, was like, hey, I found this awesome thing, CrossFit. And I was like, man, I did a little bit of that in high school. It was like a version of it. It wasn't the real deal. And you were like, hey, I think this would really help your softball. And so I started doing it in the summers with you and with my brother Ty. And every summer I came back, y'all were a little bit more serious about it. And so I was a little bit more serious about it. You know, it's one of those things where you don't even realize in the moment. You're just kind of hopping along and doing what they're doing. That's the great beauty of having two older brothers. Mm-hmm. And by my junior year, I pitched I think it was something like 75 to 80% of the innings, and I ended up tearing my pec. And in hindsight, I just wasn't doing the right shoulder therapy. I wasn't taking care of myself, but I was doing, I was working out, but I'd only worked out in the summer with you guys. And so all fall and spring, I'd kind of lost my strength. And so I came back my senior year, I'm absolutely not going to let that happen. And I busted my tail all summer, all fall, in the beginning of spring before season started in the gym. And I pitched almost double the amount of innings my senior year.
Wow.
There was one weekend where I pitched 7 innings the beginning of the weekend. Then we played a doubleheader. I finished the second game, so I pitched 3 more innings. So we were up to, 10? And then we played the rubber game on Sunday. So we played our third game, and I had to pitch 13 innings. We went 13 extra innings. And I pitched every single inning and woke up Monday ready to pitch again.
Were there other pitchers at that time pitching that much? No. And I know now, they're switching them out like crazy, even more so than they were then.
Right. It was an anomaly, and I'm very thankful that my body held up for that. Mm-hmm. And I don't take credit for that by any means. It was definitely what all I did in the gym to prepare,
And you ended up leading the nation in ERA your senior year, right? Even though you were pitching that many innings too. What was your ERA your senior year?
Oh gosh. I know by the end of the season it was around 1, but it was below 1 majority of the season. At one point it got down to 0.13.
Wow.
That was wild. I look back on that and it's amazing to me. I don't know how I did it. Other than just being so dang competitive. Yeah,
and working really hard at it.
Yeah.
So, and that builds off the success that you started in high school when you learned how to work out and take care of your body.
Right.
And you took that to the next level in college, and it really took your stuff to the next level, and you ended up being a 3-time All-American. Is that right?
So my senior
one-time
year.
all-time All-American your senior year.
Yeah. Third team Division I All-American.
That's awesome. And then you got to play against Florida in your regionals your senior year.
Yeah. And that was tough. That was the year that they went. It was 2014. They went from our regional all the way through without losing a game and won the national championship. Mm-hmm. So we got the bad luck of getting into their regional.
Yeah.
But it was really fun because I got to play at Florida, and to this day my mom still hates Florida because of how mean their fans are. They have what you don't think about Florida. They have a whole bunch of retirees that live down there in Gainesville, mm-hmm. and they love coming to the softball games, and they are not afraid to heckle the crap out of you. So you got people missing teeth yelling at you from the stands,
Oh man, so they're missing teeth. And...
Yeah, I mean, they're in their 70s, 80s, and they're using their walker to get in and out of the stands, but they're also giving you a hard time about striking out.
Man. So you end up having a great career, and then you are done. Yeah. So tell me about that. How did that feel to work towards something your whole life, and then all of a sudden it's over with?
It felt like check. Mm-hmm. I was ready.
You were ready to be done.
Yeah, I was ready to be done just because it was so much pressure. It was so much work. And I look back on, that my senior season, I was hitting, I was doing all the scoring, I was doing all the pitching. And then, sorry, we might have to take a time out.
That's right.
We'd pause it real quick.
Sure. Good. We're good. All right. So after that incredible career, you were done. So how did that feel to be done with softball?
Yeah. So at the time, I was ready to be done. It felt like, check. I'd won a conference championship. I had become an All-American, which is not something I'd ever put on my list, but it happened. It was almost like my main goal was to win a conference championship, and then the All-American was like the cherry on top that I never thought about. And mm-hmm. then our family had gotten really serious into CrossFit. You and Ty had started kind of dabbling and competing. And so I had something else to look forward to. And that was exciting to me. And I was tired of being outside of, or was tired of being away from home. So I just, came home and jumped full scale into CrossFit with you guys.
So was that conscious thinking of, when I'm done with softball, I'm excited to go on to the next thing? And
I don't think it was a conscious thing. It was just one thing that transitioned to another. And in hindsight, maybe I could have given myself a minute to not be a competitor. But it was just, at that point, I had been doing it since I was 9 years old. So all I knew what to do was to compete.
Hold on a second.
Is that Indy or Poppy?
Indy. Come on. Come on, baby.
I guess you can edit this out, huh?
I might keep it in.
I like to open this door.
Yeah.
I guess she opened that door by herself.
The demand. Not, will you open this door?
All right, I'll ask that question again.
Yeah.
So when you were glad to be done with softball, but you were looking forward to starting CrossFit. So what was going through your head at that point as far as what the next phase of your life was going to look like?
Yeah, all I knew was that I was coming home, which I was happy to be doing, being with my family, and going to be doing some CrossFit. Mm-hmm. So, in hindsight, I think I should have given myself a little bit of a break from being a competitor, but all I knew since the day I was 9 years old was compete. And so it just felt natural to me to jump straight from one thing into another.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, I think I had been competing individually at the regionals a few times, and you had gone to watch me.
Yep.
And so did you were you sitting in the stands watching and thinking, I want to do that?
That's not like something I specifically remember, but I'm sure it was a subconscious thing, because like I had done my whole life, I was watching you do something and be really great at it. And to me, that looked like a ton of fun. Mm-hmm. And I think it was you who put the bug in my head of like, hey, we could do a team. And so that was kind of like the natural evolution of, what Hunter tells me to do, I do.
Yeah. So, I remember I was kind of winding down and Ty was getting really into it. And I was thinking, man, Ty's been working really hard. I'd love for him to be able to get this opportunity to compete at regionals, and maybe we could do a team. And then, the hardest part about team is finding the girls. And if we can get Meredith, maybe we can, put together some other girls or something. So that became a very fun season for me when I transitioned out of competing individually to doing team and training with you and Ty. And we had a bunch of other people. That was so much fun, just kind of training together and everybody. So you decided you were going to compete in CrossFit, but you also, had to start a career and make money. So what were you thinking along those lines?
I had no clue. I had a marketing degree, and what I'd always thought about doing was some sort of like sports marketing. I thought that sounded super cool. But when I was at Stetson, I had gotten a call because a school around here, East Rankin, needed a softball coach. And the AD knew our dad, and so they called me and asked me if I wanted to do it. And I wasn't going to turn down money. I was graduating in the spring, and that was going to be in the fall. And so I was like, I'll, have a job waiting for me when I get done with playing. And so I took that job, and then while I was doing that job, people were calling me and asking me for lessons. And so I was like, sure, that sounds like super fun. And, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I had been taught the wrong way to pitch for over half of my pitching career and had to relearn, start over, and then catch back up. And so I always thought, man, what if I learned the right way from the beginning? What kind of pitcher could I have been? And so then I started to kind of get passionate about, man, I could help girls in Mississippi be great pitchers. We have all this talent, all these really good girls. And, one thing that I noticed when I got to Stetson was like, in Mississippi, our best athletes went to Hines or Holmes. And in Florida, their best athletes went to Florida. And I was like, why are our best athletes not going to Ole Miss or State? And I realized, like, we're just behind on who was teaching the right thing. You know, we just didn't know. We didn't have the knowledge people outside of the state did. And so then I started to really get passionate about helping girls learn the right thing. And it snowballed. You know, people just started calling, and I never advertised. It was just word of mouth. And before I knew it, I was full of lessons. And then I got the call to go play in Italy. And I was like, you know, I can't turn down this opportunity.
Yeah.
But I had this full book of lessons. And so I just told them, I was like, hey, I'm about to leave. I love coaching you guys. And they're telling me I could be gone, you know, anywhere from a couple of months to 3 months. And then I'll be back and I'll coach you guys. Well, I was gone 6 months. And I came back and I sent out a text, and the next day I had a full schedule of lessons. Yeah.
So you were doing a great job coaching, and God was kind of steering you to where you were going to have an impact on these girls and be able to teach them all the things that you had done. So let's go back to Italy for a second. So I still remember getting this email at my Coyote email from Italy in like broken English saying, I'm trying to get in touch with Meredith Owen. And
I can't believe that you didn't just dismiss it as
well,
spam.
I did think it was. I was like, this is kind of a scam or whatever, but I need to show it to Meredith. So I was like, Meredith, I got this email from some guy in Italy who said he's trying to get in touch with you about playing softball in Italy. I didn't even know they had softball in Italy.
Me either.
And so tell me about going from that email to moving to Italy and playing for 6 months.
I mean, it was such a leap of faith. Like, to the point that I walked off the plane, I was like, I hope there is someone here. Because it was, like you said, all of our communication was over email, and it was butchered English. But he was like, hey, there's a couple of girls that have played here before. You can reach out to them on Facebook. And so I did. And they were like, yeah, it's legit. But, you know, it's still scary. And I mean, they bought me a flight. So I was like, surely they have, you know, something going on if they're paying for me to come over here. So I get there and I'm thinking, you know, people in Italy speak English. Well, they don't. And it was a huge culture shock. And they had me in an apartment by myself. But one of my negotiations was, okay, I will come, but you have to supply me with a CrossFit membership. And they did. And that was my saving grace, because everyone at the CrossFit gym spoke English, because it was such an American sport at the time. Still is to a degree, but really then. And so I would go to CrossFit in the mornings, go to practice in the afternoons, and then we played on the weekends. And my team made it to the playoffs for the first time ever. So the reason they told me 3 months was because that was the end of the regular season. But then we made playoffs, and so I ended up being there another 3 months to get through playoffs and all that. So it was awesome. I always say it was some of the best of times. It was some of the worst of times. I was alone a lot, and I was lonely a lot, because even when I wasn't alone, I wasn't speaking the language. I ended up being able to understand Italian by the end, which was cool, and got to travel. I think it was like 8 or 9 different countries. They would give me time off to go travel, and you and Reagan got to come, and we took on Italy in a week, which was wild.
Yeah.
But it felt like a pause in my life, and it was one of those times, again, I cried in my pillow in the flight, because I was so sad to be leaving home. But I knew in my gut it was the right thing, and in hindsight, I'm so thankful that I did it.
So when you came back from Italy, what had changed about you from being over there in 6 months?
And just independence and 10 pounds.
Put on 10 pounds and got some independence.
Yeah.
Even though you were working out and playing a lot, it's really easy to eat a lot in Italy.
I mean, and we ate pizza after every game. So it was like there was no protein. It was carbs, you know?
What was your favorite food that you ate while you were there?
All of it.
All of it? Yeah.
No, they had this stuff called torta frita. It's like fried bread. And you could put prosciutto, which is like sliced deli meat is kind of the way to describe it, but it's not really like our deli meat, you know. It's more like a charcuterie meat. And then they'd also have fresh Parmesan cheese, and you put all that together and eat it. It was just to die for. But it's like the combination of the meal in Italy. It's not just one or two things.
Right.
It's
And
hard
you
to
sit down
say.
and eat for 4 or 5 hours
Yeah.
and have all these courses.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. So you moved back and you kind of taken a pause
Mm-hmm.
and you came back and you had a full hitting roster and you decided you were going to start, or pitching roster, and you decided you were going to start competing in CrossFit. So kind of what were the next steps in your life? I know you were single at the time and starting to potentially look at getting married and starting a family. And so how did those next couple of years go?
Yeah. So the month before I left to go to Italy is when I met my husband, Lee. And he just approached me one night. I was at a bar to pick up one of my friends, and he came up and started talking to me, and I wasn't going to give him my real number. I thought it was kind of sketch for him to come approach me, and then we hit it off. And I always make the joke that once he told me he'd played baseball at Mississippi State, then I took him serious,
Yeah.
which is so silly, but that's what a 22-year-old mind thinks, you know. So I met him, went to Italy. We had some hard times, you know, the time change, and basically everybody that I knew that spoke English was a CrossFit gym, and who's at a gym but a bunch of guys, you know. And of course, you know, being 8 hours away, you don't care about, or 8-hour time difference. You don't care for your girl being hanging out with all these guys. Anyways, Lee, once I came back, Lee and I started kind of connecting again, and I was getting into the CrossFit thing. I was kind of slowly developing my pitching business and just figuring out what I wanted to do. And I didn't know. I was trying to just take it a step at a time. And I knew I really liked Lee, and we started to get more serious, and then, you know, ended up getting engaged and then married and starting this life. And that's kind of when I started to get super serious into CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I specifically remember, I think we were married a year, because we did my first year on a team, we weren't married, and then my second year we were. And then we just sat down and had a conversation, because I was like, hey, look, I want to go all in on this CrossFit thing. And Lee's older than me. He's 5.5, 6 years older. He was ready to start a family. And I was like, I want to start a family with you eventually, but I really want to do this first. Mm-hmm. And that is something I'm so thankful for Lee, was he was all in on it with me. Mm-hmm. And from that moment when we had that conversation to the day I stopped competing, he was all in. He helped out around the house, because when you're training for that many days, it's hard to get the laundry done. It's hard to stay on top of the dishes. He helped out with all that stuff, so I could put all my energy into the gym, and I'm so thankful for that. But yeah, it was a conscious decision. I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in and give this amount of time into competing as an individual athlete. Mm-hmm. And it absorbed my life.
Yeah. And so y'all sat down and had that conversation, and then you were training, and then you were also a wife, and then you also were giving lessons every single day. So how did you schedule your day, and what did your day-to-day and week-to-week look like?
Gosh, it was, and my mom and my sister can tell you, it was scheduled to the minute, just like back in high school, you know, like every second was taken advantage of. And I guess that's where I feel comfortable, because it's what I did in high school. It's what I did through college. And then I immediately picked it up when I started competing in CrossFit. Like, I had so much that I had to get done in the gym every day before I could make it to lessons, but I also had to make sure that I ate enough and had a shower before I went out there, you know. So literally every second of every day was accounted for, and making sure I was prioritizing getting enough rest, and then recovering, stretching, in order to just be able to refresh and do it again the next day. So all my days were just regimented. Mm-hmm. It was very centrally focused. Nothing else mattered.
Did you love it in the time?
In the time, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. What did you like most about it?
The day-to-day. Mm-hmm. The most fun times, though, when I look back, is when people in the gym would hop in and do a workout with me. Yeah. You know, and I would destroy them. It was so fun. But it was just the camaraderie and the support, you know. And then, like, the times when you and I were together, mm-hmm. and you were coaching me, and we were walking through a workout, and, you know, I was getting set up for, so much of CrossFit is at your home gym with a video camera, making sure measurements are exactly right and your weights are exactly right. And that is beyond stressful. But I look on those times as so sweet, because it was when my support system, my family, my gym family was around me. You were judging me, and I was just going as hard as I could, and y'all just were supporting that.
Yeah. And I think training, especially compete at a high level, is such, everybody thinks it's a physical sport, which it is, but I think it's much more mental, because it's 4 or 5 hours of training every day, and then every other hour of your day has to be optimized for recovery and mobility and sleep and making sure you're eating the right stuff, and you have to do it every single day for multiple years without ever knowing if you're ever even going to get close to making it. And then there's not this huge financial windfall at the end of it either. And so so many people, I think, look at the games and think they want to do it without realizing what it's going to take.
Right.
And I think the hardest part is doing it by yourself. And that's why I always encourage people that are wanting to do it, train with people for as long as you possibly can, because if you go in the corner by yourself, you're going to burn out, whether it's 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, or whatever. So you were able to train with a group of people for a very long period of time. And then for the last couple of years, you started going by yourself. And what was the difference in that?
Yeah, I mean, it was way harder.
A lot harder, yeah.
And I ramped up not just the intensity, but the volume at the end too. But I knew that's what it took. And it was awesome because I'd get to go train with people, like at training camps. I did the Proven training camp. And when I was there with people, it was so much better. But then I'd come home and I'd spend all weekend in the gym alone. And this is such a core memory for me. I remember watching everybody come to church Sunday morning, leave, go home, and then come back for night church and then leave again. And I was at the gym that whole time by myself. And that was hard. And that it clicked for me after I finally stopped why these high-level competitors train in training camps.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing that day in and day out by yourself, it's really hard to stay motivated and want to keep doing it, you know?
And then in the middle of the workout, it's really hard to push yourself when you're in there by yourself.
Right.
So you competed and you made it to the semifinals several times. You were a few spots away 1 year, but you never actually made it to the game. Yeah. So looking back on that, do you look at it as a failure or just part of a bigger picture, a bigger story?
I don't think I'm far enough away from it to say yay or nay. You know what I mean? It still stings. It's still hard to look back, and I still have nights where I wake up and think, man, if I had hit that jerk, or if I had not misunderstood my judge and sprinted through the finish on that one workout, you know, it was that close that 1 year specifically. And that was the 1 year that I had no expectations. You know, I went in not knowing where I could land, and being so close was really hard. And then, but, you know, it's kind of funny what you're talking about. I look back on that. So I think I was like 1 to 5 points out of the last chance qualifier. And what that would have bought me was just more time to train to get to the games that year. And that time, I actually went to the pool every single day for a month with my 2 nieces and my mom. And when I look back on what I want to be true for my life, it's not that I wish that I had achieved this one goal. It's that I was able to impact people in a positive way that I was around. And especially my nieces and my now daughter and my son, you know. So I can't say that I would have been happier if I had made it. I think I would have probably been more miserable because it would have just been more time that I spent training alone. Yeah. Instead of spending it where I truly wanted to be. And that was like my second to last year. And so my whole last year, I just spent training thinking, gosh, if I can just make it, I don't have to do this anymore. And that, when I finally had a real conversation with myself, when I said that to myself out loud, I was like, man, I don't need to be doing this anymore. Yeah. You know? So in reality, even if you had made it, your life would look the same now. Yeah. And you still had that impact on your family. And then you had so many people here cheering you on, and you motivated so many people. I know you've had a lot of girls come up to you and speak to you in public about how they really enjoyed watching you. So you really did have that impact. I appreciate that. You know, I look back and I'm like, okay, say all my dreams came true and I was able to check that box, I'd still be sitting exactly where I am today. Yeah, absolutely. So you decided to wrap up your competing career.
At the same time, your business was still growing.
Yeah.
How were you juggling growing your business while also trying to, do all that?
Yeah. So this was when I started to really lean on you, because I knew that we wanted to start a family. I've been putting Lee off. He was super supportive on competing. I was ready to be done competing, and I wanted to start a family, but also knew I'd have to take some steps back from my job, because the hardest thing about what I do is I got to be there to, one, make money, and to support my girls. That's how they learn, is me telling them what to do. So I just called you and I was like, what am I going to do? Lee and I want to start a family. And you're like, hire some help. So that was like one of the best things and eye-opening things that you did for me, was just like the possibility of growth and what that would look like. It blew my mind, because honestly, I really hadn't thought about it. I didn't know if I could. It was scary, the thought of hiring someone and not having her any lessons to give her. So we ended up, Lee and I got pregnant, and which I'm thankful for. It happened real fast. And I sat down with a girl named Grace Self that I had known since she was little, and I'd actually coached her. And she came on as one of my coaches. And then when I had Blakely, she stepped in and took care of my lessons for me while I was gone, and we didn't skip a beat. And then word of mouth got out once I came back that Grace had availability, and before I knew it, she was full, and we had to hire another coach, and we're still looking for coaches now.
Wow.
It's been such a blessing. And again, I go back to such a God thing. Like, I never dreamed this was what I was going to be doing. One of my lessons told me that she told her teacher she was going to sit on a bucket for a living, and I'm not going to deny that stung a little bit, but it's what we do. It's pretty, I'm thankful.
That's awesome. So now you have two beautiful babies,
Yeah.
and plans for more. So what are you trying to intentionally pass on to your kids?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. For one, like, the most important thing to me is, eternity living instead of right now. It's so hard to not get caught up in like the day to day. And, my knee jerk reaction is to set them up for success here. But I know this life is just temporary. And so my biggest goal and dream for them is just to teach them what it's like to walk with the Lord every day, and so that they can live eternity there. And then, while they're here, teaching them how to, live a fulfilled life instead of a life chasing goals. Because I feel like that has been my struggle, is trying to chase the goal, but is that fulfilling my life? And I believe God puts these goals on our hearts and in our minds so that we can help people along the way. It's just a tightrope, not getting lost in that goal chase.
So your definition of what you want out of life has kind of changed and evolved as you've gone on. So what does that look like now?
Yeah. At this moment, it is, like I mentioned before, while we're here, helping as many people in their path as I possibly can. I want to, help people get to eternity, but I feel like a lot of my responsibility is to teach people what that looks like now and being here and present with them. And sports is a great way to do that. It sets you up in so many ways for success in this life, but it also teaches you how to walk with the Lord, because it's so much by faith. I mean, you throw a ball down the middle, umpire calls it a ball.
Yeah.
Can you control that? No. But you have to trust that somebody else has your back in those situations, So it's hard.
Yeah. So before we move on to the last section, I sent you some questions that I'm going to ask all our guests, and so I'm excited to hear these answers. But first one is, what are 2 books that you loved and or had a big impact on you?
Yeah. Gonna give you a shout out on both of these, because of course you're the one who gave me these 2 books. First one was The Obstacle Is the Way. I mean, I feel like a broken record when I say that, but it's so true. And when I was in college, one of my coaches, she had always said, so what next pitch? And that's kind of that same mantra as the obstacle is the way. And I'm learning it now in business more than ever. It's when something difficult happens, it opens up a million doors. And so it's your choice to like let that difficult thing kind of defeat you, or to pivot and look at alternate ways to get what you want done. And so that one has really stuck with me, and I feel like I'm really just at the beginning of understanding it. And then the other one is Gentle and Lowly, the one about Jesus. Like, we've talked about him through biblical standpoint our whole lives. We grew up in the church. We went to a Christian school. But to think of him as a person that's sitting right here with me, and what that means and what his love looks like, has really hit me at this time in my life. And maybe it's since becoming a mother that I finally can understand what true just love looks like, without any strings attached.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the blessings of becoming a parent, is you finally get it. And so that book has really kind of hit me right in the heartstrings. And I'll be honest, I got all the way to the last chapter and have not finished it because I've enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
I need to read the last chapter and then just reread it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. So the obstacle is the way I read in one afternoon on a Saturday afternoon, and it was when I was done competing and kind of trying to figure out what was next for me, and just in a tough mental space, and it had such a tremendous impact on me, and I've read it 4 or 5 times, and always one of the first books I recommend.
Yeah.
But I agree with you 100% about having kids, and since having our girls, it just completely changes your view of what unconditional love looks like, and realizing like there's nothing that these girls could ever do that could make me love them any less or any more.
Right.
And unlocking a whole nother level that you didn't even know you had, and realizing like that Jesus' love for us is infinitely more than that. And it boggles the mind.
It's shocking. Yeah.
So next question is, what's a piece of advice that really stuck with you?
That one. So I'm just going to roll the ball from that, because I'll have to shout out my coach. She was our associate head coach, Coach B. She said, always, so what, next pitch. And that mantra stuck with me from that point. And, my mom had taught me that from the beginning, and she was the one who supported me through the hard work and pushing me to the next thing. But she had never put it into those words. So when I heard those words from my coach, it was like my mom had built the foundation, and the coach had given me the key that gave me the trigger to understand, like, whatever happens, it's okay. We just got to move on and keep going, Sometimes
you have to be in the right season of life for the advice to stick, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the hardest season of your life that you're now most grateful for?
So this one was back when I was 9. That was probably one of the hardest seasons of my life. And at the time, I didn't know what was really going on, but it's what catapulted me to softball. Back then, I was really devoted to my friendships, and I put I would say probably my worth into my friends. And it's crazy to say that when you're that young, but it's true. And I think I had a tiff with a friend of mine. She and I were both just strong personalities. As you can tell, I'm very competitive, and she was too. And we had something happen at school where she had gotten up from our table. Her little underwear tag was hanging out, and I had called to her and told her. In my mind, I was doing her a favor, but I think her and the teacher interpreted it as me making fun of her. My heart in it was not that, but the teacher ended up telling her mom. Her mom forbid her from hanging out with me, so our friend group went with her, and it was one of the saddest and loneliest times of my life. But her mom was also the softball commissioner in Jackson, and so when that happened, that's when our mom pulled me from Jackson softball and took me to Madison. And if she had never done that, I never would have had a softball career. I would have wasted away with the Jackson softball that was not any good, and never would have done my 10,000 throws and catches. Yeah. And honestly, if I had had those friends, I probably wouldn't have had the time to do the 10,000 throws and catches.
Wow.
When Mom and I were out there doing our 100 every night, I would just tell her what had happened in my day and how sad and lonely I was. And credit to our mom. I mean, she was never not on my side. She always supported me. And because in that time, I really had a lot of self-doubt. Like, am I mean? Do I have ill will towards other people? And because all these people were telling me that I did. But Mom stuck by me and was always there to support the positive side. And so I firmly believe she's the one who got me through that time. And like I said, it catapulted me into the competitor and the independent woman that I am today.
So what's something about you that would surprise people who think they know you?
This one was tough too, just because it's such a vulnerable question. But I think I track along with a lot of other people that come across as competitive and confident. When I look back at the main times where I didn't succeed, it's because of self-doubt. And that's one of my biggest regrets when it comes to CrossFit was I always doubted. You know, I can specifically remember being in workouts and being neck and neck with a games athlete and wondering how and why I was there, and then all of a sudden failing reps, you know, instead of being like, heck yeah, I've done the work to be here. It was always gosh, am I athletic enough to be here? You know, it was always a doubt in my athleticism. So, yeah, I think that would probably surprise people that I doubt that, but it's true.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So last one, what are you most competitive about that has nothing to do with your career?
This one was hard. I actually asked Lee to help me out with this one. And he said probably changing the sheets.
Competitive about changing the sheets?
Because I guess I wash our sheets too often for him because he has to, help me make the bed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You help me with this one. What do you think? Maybe you?
Yeah, I would say you're competitive about everything.
I know. That's the hard part.
Who's going to plan the beach trip? Who's gonna have the party at their house?
I know.
Who's going to be the best mom? All that type of stuff. So.
I will say that being a mother has softened that side of me because I'm just in a whirlwind of changing diapers and cleaning up, spit up.
In the thick of it for sure.
Yeah.
So you've been an elite athlete, a professional softball player. You're an entrepreneur, a wife, and a mother. So what do you want outside of all that stuff with your life going forward?
I just want to take as many people with me into eternity. I feel like those are our treasures. And they talk about building up treasures in heaven, and I firmly believe those are people. And so, the people that are around me are so important to me. And it's not just my kids, it's my family, it's my siblings, it's their kids, my nieces and nephews. All those people are just, the light of my life. And so when I look back on my life, I want to be able to say, man, I had a positive impact on them in some way or some form at some point in their life.
That's good. What does your business look like from here? What are you working towards?
Yeah. So got a couple things going on. Number one, my lessons. I really would love the lifetime goal has been to have a facility that people can come and go and practice. Cause that's one of the biggest things about Mississippi. We got rain, we got cold, sometimes got snow and ice. I want a place that they can come and practice and get better and make it to the highest level schools in the state of Mississippi. Because that's where we're still behind there. I'd love to see our athletes getting to the highest level and our facility being a safe place for that, having enough coaches to support that, good coaches.
Yeah.
And that avenue of softball. But I've kind of gotten into business with my brother, Ty, doing house flips and rentals. And that has been honestly something I've thoroughly enjoyed. And it's just having a project, and maybe it's because it forces me to be back into that regimen and schedule of every moment of every day matters.
Filling the dead time.
Exactly. But it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it, and my brother Ty and I have gotten really close, talking every day about doing stuff. I mean, a lot of times I'm just calling to vent to him, and he's just listening. But yeah, so both of those things, just growing them as far as I can possibly go.
So what do you want the women who are listening to this podcast, especially the ones who feel like they got something big in front of them, what do you want them to take away from this?
Oh, man. Women have such a heart, or are such a large part of my heart, because I feel like there's so much misinformation out there for women on what a healthy woman is. And I think what I'd like for them to take away from this is, I think we all struggle with self-doubt and if we can do things or if we can do hard things. But I promise you, if you will just take it one step at a time and trust God with that one step, you really can do whatever you want. And when it comes to health and fitness, prioritize that, because it's easy to get lost in motherhood and feel like you're giving your everything to your kids, and you should, but you've got to take some away for yourself to be here for them in the long run. It's so easy for women to lose their own health because they're constantly worried about their kids. And in the long run, I believe that's selfish, because that just shortens the time you're here with them.
So you've already kind of touched on this, but 10 years from now, what would you look back on and say, I feel really happy about the last 10 years, or I feel happy with what I've built?
Ooh, that's tough. Just having Lee and I intend to grow our family, and just having a family that is close and is moving in a positive direction like ours is. If I could copy and paste our family over again, that's what I would say would be a success.
Wow. Well, I think you're definitely well on the right track with all that.
Thank you.
So this is an amazing story, and you got so many cool things going on and a lot of stuff ahead of you. But
Thanks.
Where can people find out about more about your pitching business, or if they want to be involved with that, or anything else that you've got going on?
Yeah, you can check out our Facebook and Instagram page, All Ace Athlete. We want them to be ace at all aspects of softball, so that's where we got the name. And then just my personal Instagram is Meredith Swindle. If you want to check out, I've kind of been slowly doing some updating on the house flipping and rental thing. So if you're interested in that, you can kind of check that out on my Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on, Meredith.
Thanks for having me.